That's my message to the American people. Remember, when it comes to the midterms, you have to get that bully and send him a message.
Oh God, how embarrassing. Do things ever improve whenever Dougie speaks? So US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer spoke at length today about what's going on with Canada, and he did not mince words. He called it for what it was, so we'll take a look at what he said. But Canada is so close to a trade deal with the US, and like clockwork, shadowy power brokers come out of the woodwork to derail everything. But who are they, and why are they trying to keep Canada from getting a deal? And former Prime Minister Stephen Harper made quite the revelations today, and you won't guess who is behind his downfall. My name's Eli Daniel, and this is The Right Call. Like, share, subscribe, hype this video up. Any interaction on this channel helps push the truth out, and maybe someday help break that CBC-induced coma that so many Canadians are under. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button, because if you like the truth, you found the right place. Our Minister of Finance kind of outs himself on this video. I don't know why he put it out. Either he doesn't understand how the economy works, which is quite troubling, at face value here, or he's just running cover for his government's failures by deflecting.
Because the best thing that we can do as Canadians is obviously to support our negotiating team, but at the same time to focus on what we can control. What we can control is to remove inter-provincial trade barriers. What we can control is to buy Canadian. What we can control is to open overseas market.
All right, so let's dive into those 3 points, because honestly, there's a problem with all 3 of them. Also, am I the only one who loves the way he speaks when he speaks in English? I'm not trying to make fun of his accent. It's his tonality. He sounds like a little chipmunk. He kind of looks like one too. But anyways. Okay, fine. The first point, inter-provincial barriers. Yeah, well, they were always insane, no doubt. Let's remove them. However, they've been running the same tape over and over and over again now for over a year. We will remove the inter-provincial trade barriers. Let's go. We're trying to make Canada strong or whatever. But yeah, why hasn't it happened yet? I mean, am I crazy? But aside from a bunch of announcements, what has concretely been done to remove those trade barriers? Nothing. It's just announcements. And I'm going to show you a video in just a bit that really highlights how Canada works. It's hilarious, but also so sad, so sad. So what he did on this first point of inter-provincial barriers is admit that his government is a failure. Cool. All right. Now on to the second point, buy Canadian. Now this is where I have a massive issue, because it doesn't fix your country and it doesn't grow your economy. Actually, it does quite the opposite. It's a circular loop of diminishing returns for your economy. Why? Well, because government. And to explain it, I drew a picture. All right, there's no laughing at my diagram here, okay? I was never arts and crafty, if that's even a word. But it does the job, right? So let's take Joanne over here. She wants to buy groceries. She has $100. She buys $100 worth of groceries. Well, she's gonna have to pay sales tax. There goes $15 to the government up there. Now, Joe right here, the grocer, he's going to have to pay corporate tax on that eventually after expenses. It's net of your expenses. But regardless, for imaging's sake here, we'll just say he pays 30% corporate tax on the entire amount. Well, there goes $30, whoop, from, what did I call him, Josh, John, whatever, to the government. So your $100 in the economy has now lost $45 to the government. So there's only $55 left. Now, same thing happens here with Bob, who wants to buy a pizza. Same thing happens here with Allison, who is handicapped, because we are inclusive on this channel, due to Bill C9. I have to be careful what I say. So, we're super inclusive, rainbows everywhere. I'm not going to put them up. Anyways, so same thing happens here. The government just sucks away money at every turn, and that money doesn't go back to the economy. It doesn't. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It's just lost. But Elliot, it actually goes back to the economy. Well, no, not when the government sends billions of dollars overseas on silly programs or to support wars. The money is lost. So the only way to grow an economy is actually to do the opposite, to attract money from overseas into the country. That's an injection of fresh, new capital that did not exist before into the country. So no, we cannot save our country by just recirculating the money, getting smaller diminishing return because the government sucks it all up. Same thing, by the way, with credit cards, right? The swipe fee, 1.5% to call it 3.5%. Well, that money is gone to the bank. It's not going to the pockets of the merchant. And that's why your $100 is getting smaller and smaller, a smaller piece of the pie. It's the same thing with taxes. So in short, our Minister of Finance does not understand the economy clearly. And point number 3, open overseas markets. Yes, very important. Except that it hasn't even happened. We've had plenty of discussions, plenty of announcements, once again, MOUs for sure, but nothing actually has been signed and most importantly, ratified. Here's the entire list of new trade agreements that were supposedly announced by the Carney government. The US, Mercosur, that's a bunch of South American like Brazil and Argentina, etc. Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, India, China, Turkey, Ecuador, United Arab Emirates, Pakistan. All of these are not binding agreements. They're either negotiation, like formal negotiations launched, or exploratory trade talks launched, or negotiations have concluded but have not yet been ratified. There's only two that have been ratified, that of Pakistan and that of the United Arab Emirates. So that's a good start, but they are infinitely inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. But yet, listening to our media and the announcements of the government, we are making deals left and right, and our reliance on the US now is apparently not needed. So again, a government failure.
Trade talks with Canada are next week. What do we want?
More oil. Canada has lots of oil.
Perfect.
They just can't get it out.
Why not?
Reviews, consultations, regulators, and occasionally an owl.
The owl again?
Different owl.
Fine. Let's ask for a pipeline.
Canada approved one.
Great.
Subject to consultations.
How many?
Currently, about 10,000.
10,000?
And all of them have to agree.
All of them?
Canada likes to dream big.
Okay. Critical minerals.
Canada announced a critical mineral strategy.
Excellent. How many mines?
0.
How is that possible?
The announcement was approved. The mine wasn't.
Incredible.
What about LNG?
Canada signed an MOU.
What does that mean?
Nothing.
Nothing?
It's like a project, except without the project.
So what can Canada export?
Announcements.
Anything else?
MOUs.
Anything real?
They're currently consulting on that.
Let me get this straight. Canada has oil, gas, minerals, hydro, forests, farmland, and they still need a trade deal?
Correct.
What exactly is Canada's biggest industry?
Announcing things,
And second?
studying the things they announced.
That's got to be frustrating.
For everyone.
So this skit encapsulates to a T how Canada behaves. We're a country that is so captured by its media establishment that our government runs on constant PR rather than actual results. Why work to get a deal done, which isn't easy, when you can just announce that you're working on a deal, have the media blasted 24/7 singing your praise, making you out to be a damn messiah in the process, and then, when nothing changes and the economy inadvertently falters, just deflect to your favorite boogeyman, the US and Trump, for some reason, or worse yet, our opposition party that hasn't been in power now for over a decade.
Several Conservative MPs are privately expressing concerns about Pierre Poilievre's leadership. CTV News spoke with 17 Conservative MPs from all regions of the country, and all were granted anonymity to speak candidly about the party's challenges. They were asked about a recent Nanos poll commissioned by CTV News, which concluded that Prime Minister Mark Carney has, quote, no obvious challenger when presented with a list of Conservative politicians. All but 2 of the MPs agreed with that assessment. 5 MPs pointed to Ontario as a particular problem area, saying some Conservative voters have warmed to Carney and his leadership.
That is so weird. So weird. The fact remains that 80% of our trade is done with the US, and instead of focusing on the government in power's failure to secure a deal and looming 50% tariffs, and the fact that our Prime Minister jets off to Italy in this grueling last-second moment, well, no, let's focus on the opposition leader. Man, these people are really scared of Poilievre. So Jamieson Greer, the US trade representative in charge of negotiations with Canada, gave a press briefing today at an Iowa state fair, and he sure did not mince words when it came to our country. In short, it doesn't sound great for Ottawa.
So, President Trump's trade agenda is exactly discussing. We want to protect American industry. We want to reshore manufacturing. And so the president has used a mix of tariffs, a mix of deals to try to protect American industry. Where does Canada come in on all this? America has its trade policy. It's going to pursue its trade policy. We've been working with our Canadian colleagues. Obviously, they have ideas. There are elements of U.S. trade policy that they don't like. Part of that is because they've had completely free access to the U.S. market for many decades. The United States at this point, we're trying to control our borders, whether it's for immigration, for imported goods and services, whatever it is, we're trying to get a handle on that. So we're having what I would call constructive negotiations with the Canadians. At the end of the day, President Trump and the United States, we're going to do what is best for America. If there's a way to bring Canada along with that, we're happy to do that. But we are mostly focused, first and foremost, on making sure President Trump's trade policy is executed. We'll keep talking to our Canadian partners, just like we do all of our trading partners. Thank you.
Sounds reasonable that the president would want to pursue an agenda that puts his country first. I wish our Prime Minister did the same instead of putting Brookfield first. But here's the thing that Canadians absolutely have failed to understand. It's not the US attacking Canada. Canada wasn't singled out. Rather, with the new administration of President Trump, they took a different foreign policy on trade approach. They decided to stop the US being abused by the rest of the world and giving free access to their market with barely anything in return. And like US Trade Representative Greer said here, we've had unfeathered access to the US market now for a while. We got so used to it, so complacent to it that we are taking it for granted. And when the US is putting its foot down and saying, look, we're going to need to start having a bit of concessions, even though Canada will still win, Canada will still get a massive, amazing benefit from it, well, we throw a temper tantrum because that's exactly it. We became complacent and we became entitled. We thought that the US market belonged to us. It doesn't. So right now, not having a deal is worse off for Canada, but we're being petulant. We're shooting ourselves in the foot to try to make a point instead of just saying, hey, we'll work, we'll concede, we'll give a few things. We'll be better off anyways than not having a deal. Jeez.
Well, I suppose what I would say is for decades we have had issues with Canada. So when you say one or two issues, that would be nice if it were one or two issues. There are a lot of issues, and we're speaking about all of them. I won't give any more detail than that, other than all these things that we have been concerned with for decades on the U.S. side. We have been raising them. We continue to raise them. And I think that any potential resolution has to include all of these or a pathway forward for them. Thank you.
See, that speaks to exactly what I just said. The U.S. has seen issues with Canada's trade agreements for a while, and they're just trying to rectify the situation. They're not trying to take advantage of Canada. Rather, they're from the standpoint that Canada has been taking advantage of the U.S. And if you look at numbers and metrics, they're not necessarily wrong. It has been an unequal partnership. They're just asking us, hey, put more on the table so that it becomes more enticing for us, and we will continue to allow you, Canada, to reap untold benefits from this agreement.
Well, I would say that those duties, if you look at what was put out, the legal basis for those duties, the policy basis for those duties are related to measures that Canada took against the United States. So I've got two countries in the world that have retaliated against the United States for trade measures: the People's Republic of China and Canada. That's not the kind of company you really want to be running in. And so we have three issues where Canadians have banned the sale of American wine and spirits in Canada. You know, for everything that we've done in the Trump trade administration of essentially assessing a fee on foreign goods made by foreign workers, we're not in the business of banning these things from Canada. So that's interesting. So that has to be resolved. We have an uneven dairy treatment. In some instances, Canada gives the EU better treatment on dairy than they give us, their best customer, and we want the benefit of our bargain from NAFTA and USMCA on dairy. And then we have a variety of other issues on procurement and a variety of things like that. I mean, those things have to be resolved because that's the legal basis for those other tariffs. Again, from the U.S. perspective, this is our trade policy. The Canadians have come in and they want to have a conversation about it, and we're having those conversations. I mean, again, this is a global trade policy. We have been suffering in the United States for decades under a trade policy that incentivizes offshoring to China, to Mexico, to Vietnam, but in some cases to Canada even. And we can't allow that to happen anymore. Ultimately, we are accountable to American voters. The president was elected by voters on a campaign, on a platform of protecting American industry. So that is first and foremost what we need to do. These tariffs that are coming in, they are a response to Canadian retaliatory measures, like the kind of things that China would do. And so those are things that would have to be resolved. Thank you.
Ooh, the kind of things that China would do. That's what Canada is looked at now from the American perspective. We're the only other country aside from China that has decided to fight with the US, even though all countries receive different tariffs, and we still have the most preferential levels of tariffs. It doesn't help that just the other day, Sean Chan was outed potentially, allegedly, as a Chinese Communist Party benefactor, infiltrator, I don't know. Michael Ma, perhaps, again, allegedly, maybe. China is insidiously manipulating and puppeteering Canada, and I mean, it shows because we're the only ones that are doing what China is doing, which is fighting back against the US, our greatest partner. And line that really got me the most is we took for granted access to the US market. And then we turned around and how did we thank the US? We gave preferential treatments to other countries like in the EU rather than the US. The US is allowing us to reap untold benefits. It's effectively, let's call it spade a spade. The only reason why Canada became a wealthy country was because of the US and the relationship we had with them. And what do we do to thank them? We give benefits to other nations. And then when the US is like, hey, guy, I thought we were like besties. Like, do you mind like putting me first as well? Like I've been doing with you. We fight back against him, just like his biggest enemy does, China. It is insane. It's the elbows up crowd that doesn't understand that. For me, it baffles me to levels that is beyond comprehension. And again, it makes me wonder very deeply, how infiltrated has Canada become? How subversive has China been with Canada? How much of China effectively is dictating the policies we're taking right now?
Well, again, for us, this is not a trade war. We have domestic supply chains we're trying to protect and support. That's what we're trying to do. It's not Canada specific. It's, we're doing this globally. If a country retaliates against us, we're obviously not going to tolerate that. We'll take action. My sense is the Canadians, they want to have a more conciliatory approach.
And in spite of all of that, they still won't call it a trade war because they don't see themselves at war with us. Contrast that to Canadian media slapping the label of the trade war, the tariff war with the US. Again, it's two different perspectives. And there's a reason why most Canadians have an unfavorable view of the US, while in the US, that is not the case. They love Canadians. They don't really have an issue with us. Why would they? And they especially don't have a media that just fans the flames of division like we have over here in Canada. But what I find oh so convenient is that as soon as it was leaked that Canada was on the brinks of a trade deal with the US and that in essence the agreement was drafted, we were just, simply dotting the I's and crossing the T's, a concerted effort by some bad actors to derail the entire thing was put into motion. First, the Canadian media started airing non-stop this completely crazy petition that calls to oust the US ambassador Pete Hoekstra.
A growing online petition is taking aim at the U.S. ambassador to Canada, calling for Pete Hoekstra to be removed. Nearly 30,000 Canadians have signed it, saying Hoekstra should be declared persona non grata, accusing him of repeatedly weighing in on Canadian politics and damaging Canada-U.S. relations. The petition, launched by a woman from Calgary, is set to be presented in the House of Commons in the fall.
It's a petition that has been circulating for weeks prior to this and has had garnered very little support, and all of a sudden it becomes primetime national news. It's again, the timing is oh so odd, and the media just had to start beating the drum of anti-Americanism loud and proud to turn the population away from this trade deal. And then you have our favorite closeted liberal and die-hard Carney fanboy, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who comes out with even more inflammatory rhetoric and injects himself in this entire ordeal once again.
As President Trump threatens additional 50% tariffs, my message to the Americans, a tariff on Canada is a tax on the American people. They're feeling the pain. As we saw last month, they didn't have any job creation, so it's hurting the American people. That's my message to the American people. Remember, when it comes to the midterms, you have to get that bully and send them a message, including on goods that are covered by the Canada, United States, Mexico agreement. We're also doubling down on our $236 billion plan to build, which is the largest infrastructure plan of its kind in Canadian history.
First of all, is it me, or does he look more and more like Jabba the Hutt? I'm just putting it out there. But calling the president a bully on national TV is just sure a great way to get Trump to turn his back on Canada once again. It's not only suicidal knowing that Trump values respect, and yes, he values his image also very much so, but it's also just plain childish, like very unbecoming of a premier. And what a flip for Dougie Boy over here from just a few months ago when he was doing the rounds of US national TV promoting Fortress North America.
Doug Ford, Premier Ford, thanks very much for coming in. You're smiling. It's a pretty tense time in U.S.-Canadian relations right now.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in, and we're down here promoting
something called Fortress North America.
What is Fortress North America?
Well, Fortress North America is about...
Don't care, Doug. I'm not giving you some airtime. Nope. Gone. Bye. Don't want to see you. Like I detailed in my last episode, check it out if you haven't. Shameless plug right here. But this anti-American rhetoric isn't organic, and it sure is not natural either. It's 100% manufactured because some bad actors and power brokers of this country hate the United States. I've been in rooms with some of the biggest names in media. You see them day in and day out on CBC and CTV. And the things that are said behind closed doors when the cameras are not rolling, well, would make your eyes roll. They have such deep personal hatred for the United States. And imagine that, the media controlling and shaping foreign policy. That's how powerful they've become in our country. Some bad hombres just won't allow Canada to lose its biggest boogeyman. Some do it because it's great for their ratings, and others do it because it's an amazing scapegoat for when their own domestic policies inadvertently fail. This is a paid advertisement for Rumble Wallet. They're sponsoring this portion of the show. What if your bank flat out told you no to your own money? Delayed transfers, frozen accounts, unexpected limits. It happens more than you think. That's exactly why crypto exists. It gives you control over your money, not partial control, but actual ownership. But most people never try it because it feels complicated. And I would know. I've been using crypto since 2014. I'm one of the early adopters, and I had to teach plenty of my friends and family how to use it, and there's always that little worry. That's where Rumble Wallet comes in. Yes, it's a wallet where you can store your crypto, but it does a lot more than just that. You can buy crypto in minutes, send it wherever you want, or cash out at any time. No waiting around wondering when your money will clear. And that's something I've also dealt with doing transfers, wires, you name it. It's never pleasant. It connects with MoonPay so that you can use your debit card, your credit card, or your bank account to get started fast. Inside the wallet, you can choose what you want. Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoin, or even better, digital gold backed by real gold. For a limited time, you can start your wallet with $10 in US stablecoin so that you can tip Rumble creators like myself by entering my personal promo code RightCall10 when you sign up right now. So scan the QR code or use the link in my description, download the Rumble wallet, and try it for yourself. And don't forget to use the code RightCall10 and claim your $10 in US backed stablecoin so that you can start tipping Rumble creators. For some of you, it might be the first crypto you ever own, and it's free. Once you use it, you'll finally see the difference between accessing your money and actually owning it. Restrictions apply. There is a limited number of entries available. Terms and conditions also apply, so see the description below or visit rumble.com/promo official rules for details. So let's bring back one of the GOAT, Stephen Harper. While speaking at Prager University, he detailed one of the reasons why he lost back in 2015. But the fascinating part is not why he lost, but rather who might have conspired behind the scenes to bring about the downfall of a prime minister. And as you watch this video, let me know if you can guess who I'm referring to, and then after, I'll reveal it.
The other story, why there's no Fox News, is more interesting, and this is a major reason I am no longer Prime Minister of Canada. Because before the last election, a couple of years before the last election, one of my former communications directors got this bright idea that he got a kind of a dormant television license, got a big backer, and he would set up a Fox News North. It was called Sun News. Mm-hmm. And he went out and he hired virtually all of the right-of-center journalists in the country. There are not a lot, it's a minority, but there were some. He hired them all, and then he promptly went bankrupt. And then I went into the last campaign with virtually no right-of-center journalists in any outlet in the country. You have to know that in Canada, so that's, we've got a little bit of print that's right of center, tiny bit of radio. You have to know that in Canada, every TV network, we got 3 major networks, every TV network is MSNBC. They're all MSNBC. I hear the British people complain to me, and I've checked this out with people who live in both Britain and Canada, complain to me, well, you don't have the BBC. The BBC in Canada would be the farthest right network by a country mile on television. Wow. It's that bad. So in the last election, and look, there are many reasons I lost, but one of them was, the last election, they would not cover my announcements. They would not cover any gaffe of my opponent. They scrubbed it out. They actually met every day to coordinate their coverage. They They would not run any ad I had that showed footage depicting my opponent in an unfavorable light. They simply refused to run the ads. So we literally were censored out of the coverage. And
so who was that comms director who successfully managed to get all the right of center journalists to leave their jobs, work at a new outlet, and subsequently ran the outlet into the ground, and in the process had all of the right of center journalists lose their jobs and not be able to go back to their former ones, thus leaving the Canadian media landscape barren of any competing voices against the crazy left? Well, it's no other than Corey Tanaik. And why does this matter? Because it's the same Corey Tanaik that has been running a massive character assassination campaign against, well, current Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
That's the wrong way to go about this.
It is the wrong way to go about it, but it's it ties into our favorite topic of the weakness of Pierre Poilievre. Like the reason why he's being such a pussy on pushing back against Western separatism is because he is so weak. And like one of the last cores of strength they have is the lunatic fringe of the Conservative Party that is more indexed towards people who are supporting the separatist movement in Alberta. And he doesn't want to piss off one of the last core pieces of his support base at a time when he is under threat everywhere he looks. A lot of the shadow cabinet before were
sick hat, bro. Okay, comment down below. Should I get myself a cool hat like that? Would it make me more credible?
No names and useless, which and of low profile, which is exactly what an insecure leader wants to do, right? Insecure people like to be surrounded by low profile losers. So the bigger the loser you are, the more you want to be surrounded by other losers.
I think he might be a nice guy, but their finance critic never.
Well, to me, it sounds like it's Corey who's the loser, right? It really sounds like quite a nice guy, upstanding dude. Is it because he wasn't given any power in the Conservative government back then that he decided to turn his back on everyone? Or is it because he is not given any preferential position under Pierre Poilievre's leadership in cabinet, and not cabinet, but caucus? And government structure, not government structure, party structure. Geez, guys, I'm losing it. It's the end of the week. Or is it just because he's gotten a better deal with Carney? Look, who's to say? But one thing's certain, he appears to be toxic as hell whenever he's around. Because birds of a feather flock together. First time in my life I've ever said that. Probably never again. Article here. Sometimes the truth hurts. Ford defense campaign manager who criticized Poilievre because, yes, Corey Tanaik became the campaign manager of Doug Ford. And Doug Ford just so happens to be doing basically Carney's dirty bidding and trying to undermine Canada against the US, and has never spoken nicely about Poilievre. But yet, you're supposedly a conservative. I don't buy it. That's why I call him a closeted liberal. If you've enjoyed this report and would like to find a way to get involved with the channel, aside from liking, sharing, subscribing, hyping, commenting, all the nice stuff, if you want to take a step further and help contribute financially so that I can spend more time doing research and putting out videos and countering the CBC-induced coma that everyone is so under, or even guys like Corey Tanaik, well, I have a link in the description of this video for Patreon. It's $8 a month. All donation is greatly appreciated. And or if you rather just a one-time deal, you're feeling generous or you have some spare buckaroos, I also have a link to PayPal. It is oh so appreciated. Without your support, none of this would be possible. Now, this won't be the usual outro. Don't go just yet, because I will play a 2 minutes and 30-ish second video montage showing the last 18 months of Carney's failures, bailouts, and more failures. Basically, all the elbows up stuff that, well, the media won't show. So stick around, watch it till the end. For the time being, though, my name is Elliot Daniel, and I'll see you next report.
If we're not at the table, we're on the menu.
Simply put, there is no auto industry without U.S. access and North American integration.
We know that motor vehicles is hanging on by a thread.
If we don't, we will lose the automotive manufacturing industry.
We're on the menu.
Will be to look at having operations south of the border, which I would hate to do.
New 50% tariffs on Canadian-made clothing and apparel could make that impossible.
It's a big threat on the survival of the factory, of course.
42% of Canadian manufacturers are considering moving production south or already have.
We're on the menu.
In a large shipment going back to an East Coast U.S. state, and of course that's now on hold.
Manufacturing jobs in Canada have now fallen by more than 60,000.
The Northern Ontario company will cut nearly 1,000 jobs in the coming months, almost 40% of its workforce.
It would be, I believe, catastrophic for Canada if we no longer had full tariff-free or mostly tariff-free access.
We're on the menu.
The Prime Minister has announced more than $1 billion to support Canada's beleaguered softwood lumber industry.
Has announced over $2 billion in measures designed to ensure Canada's forest product sector.
$1 billion through the BDC to support the steel, aluminum, and copper sectors.
We're on the menu.
Canadian households are absorbing an estimated $2,300 to $2,700 in higher annual costs since the tariffs came into effect. A reduction in Canada's GDP by 1.5 to 2%.
57% have paused, cut back, or canceled capital investment projects.
We're on the menu. We're at the table. We'll be having those more intense discussions.
The types of things that have been in these proposals have always been, let's talk, let's keep trading in energy, things we already do. Things that do not fundamentally commit to resolve these issues, maybe just talk about them some more.
So this is the most important relationship in the world. We're the strongest partnership. So we see it like that. We see it as a relationship that we have to work constantly, but that it's very strong, and together we can achieve great things.
We're on the menu.
I want a trade agreement with the United States of America. They're our largest trading partner, have been for all of our life.
I don't think you go into a negotiation promising to punch someone in the nose. You go into a negotiation talking about a win-win.
There's no sense antagonizing our partners that we're negotiating with.
Coming back into the country, the tail between his legs. When will he stun us? When will he impress us?
Because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu.